Hail Internet, it's Paul, it's Matt, the Dork Lords. We're here talking about What If, the Season 1 finale. What if the Watcher broke his oath? Which kind of begs the question, who was he making an oath to?
Well, the other Watchers, I assume.
Okay, I mean, actually, there's probably an answer in the comics, but so far in the MCU...
I mean, we've seen more than one Watcher.
That's true. I mean, is it like a... it's the Watcher General, and this guy's like Watcher Lieutenant, Private, make an oath. We open with a scene paying an homage to the Winter Soldier. It's an attack on Batroc on the Lemurian star, easy for me to say. But in this universe, it's Captain Carter's running the operation instead of Steve Rogers.
Correct.
And then the Watcher shows up and plucks Carter out of that universe.
Yes.
We end with an end credit scene showing Captain Carter being returned to the Lemurian star. At the moment she was whisked away, she and Black Widow then find a Hydra Stomper from World War II, and there's someone inside, a.k.a. Must be Steve Rogers, one would think. And then we roll credits. So, Paul, before we launch into all the what-ifs, what did you think of the finale for Season 1 of What If?
I liked it. Technically, it was only really resolving the thing that happened from the previous episode. I mean, we saw all these characters before that, but the story arc necessarily, you could say, really only is from last episode of him deciding, oh, shoot, maybe I should do something.
It attempts to wrap up some of those individual stories, right?
I mean, I like the animation for the season, it wraps it up, So I liked it. I thought it was good.
Yeah, I liked it too. I appreciated that they did bring it together. I've seen some disagreement online. Like, some people are like, why couldn't they just keep it as, single stories? And I'm like, that's not what they do. And
yes.
I prefer this anyway, so yay for that.
Yeah.
And I think there was an interview with one of the show creators who said that next season they'll be further exploring, the different universes. So it won't necessarily. This isn't the cast of characters we'll always see in What If.
Right. Yes.
I mean, that was probably obvious, but it's been spelled out that that's not what's going to happen. So, one thing that this episode featured that was a little confusing, for very good reason, is, and we mentioned it last week, like a lot of people were expecting this Gamora-centric episode.
Yes.
Didn't happen, but Gamora was certainly pivotal in this particular episode.
Sure.
And the reason is there was another episode that was shot, and the idea was, what if instead of Thor going to Sakaar, it was Tony Stark? And so in that way, I think he fights Gamora in the arena, and they end up having a friendship, and then they take on Thanos. And so what we see in this thing is kind of the after effects of what that episode is, which is they're destroying the Infinity Gauntlet after having, I guess, destroyed the Infinity Stones in that universe using that bizarro grinder thing. Anyway, so potentially that episode will be put into Season 2, but I guess they just, with the pandemic and stuff, they just ran out of production time and they had to cut. I don't know if it was an episode or that episode specifically, but
right.
That episode they intended for it, and then they had to pull it back. So that's why suddenly it was like, oh, okay, did we meet these people before? No, we didn't, but they originally thought they might.
Yeah, actually, we were talking about that, about if we eventually would see it. I don't see any reason why they couldn't just slot it in.
That's true. I mean, with What If being, all times and places anyway, you could just do a little like, hey, remember those guys you saw at the end of last season? Well, here's their backstory. Also, obviously, touchingly, this, I believe, was it for Chadwick Boseman's performances.
I would expect.
I think this was, his last voiceover contribution to the MCU. So sad in that way.
Yes.
A heroic send-off in that universe. He had gone to save Quill from being killed off by Ego, and successfully does so. And then we see a quick shot of the two of them off on further adventures, apparently. So, yay for that. That was a happy ending for Star-Lord T'Challa. It's funny, too, obviously Killmonger comes in, and everybody except Thor, doubts him, right? There's even that thing like, do you trust that guy? And so it kind of reminded me a little bit of Killmonger is the Boromir of this group, in that no one trusts him. Everybody's like, he's probably going to try to go for the ring, but he stays in the group anyway. And so, anyway, he eventually does exactly what everybody thinks, but, in the meantime, he gets to hang out with the group. And it was all part of the Watcher's plan. I appreciated the various magical duels that were happening. Obviously, Sorcerer Supreme, strange. It's so off the charts OP, like, he's the MVP of the group. Let's put it that way. It's
yes.
Whoop! Everybody else down here.
No one else spent nearly as much time preparing for that fight.
Right. Eating garden gnomes.
Exactly, yes.
Eating himself. You could probably argue Killmonger was irreplaceable because he was going to betray the group, but in terms of like irreplaceable members of this Guardians of the Multiverse, as they called them, probably the Sorcerer Supreme is the one guy. I mean, I think the rest could be like,
he went to him first.
We need grunts to distract
if,
Ultron.
The Watcher went over to him. He was like, "No, I'm not going to do it."
No.
It's like, well, okay, you were the main thing.
You were it. Basically, my plan specifically revolved around you. All right, we're screwed. Great. Because he gets these, casts these protective spells on everybody that are basically cheat codes. I mean, it's just like, all right, you're safe. And whatever happens to you, you're fine. He, reverses an explosion of the world and then eats it. You're like, oh, man. I was almost feeling sorry for Ultron.
Surprisingly, no one suggested that they cobble together their own gauntlet.
Right. I mean, I'm like, since apparently the stones can work in different universes, which is always a question.
And they should, and pretty much, we've seen stones in
the TVA. It had a big drawer of them.
Universes, yeah.
Just take those out of the TVA, and then you just we did see a time stone versus a time stone, I believe, for the first time, so to speak, in this, where Sorcerer Supreme still had his time stone, and he was kind of reversing the effects of Ultron using his. So we saw dueling Infinity Stones, which is kind of cool. I expect that might happen sometime in the future as well. I can imagine as we get more multiversal stuff. I don't know. Anyway.
Who knows?
So at the very end, then we've got Killmonger does the betrayal thing, and we've got the Zolatron. Zola has been put into Ultron, and he also wants the stones, and so there's this fight for the stones, which Sorcerer Supreme realizes was the intent. You needed to get the stones out of Ultron and then put him into a pocket plane while he didn't have protection of the stones. And so that's what happens. He's in a pocket plane inside a pocket plane, and supposedly the Sorcerer Supreme is going to watch this little ball.
Yeah, double pockets are safe.
Double pockets. But my thought was like, it's not a situation in stasis. It's not like I put Ultron in a snow globe and now he has to stay there. It's like he's actively attempting to get Infinity Stones, which you would think if one of the other, either Killmonger or Zolatron, got those stones, they would be powerful enough to get the hell out of this pocket plane.
You would think.
So it feels like this is like it's not an eternal struggle. It's like next week they'll be like, oh, now I win. But anyway, you get the feeling that it's like Sorcerer Supreme's just going to watch this thing forever. And then you even mentioned, I think earlier, you were like, well, maybe he just like zap spells in there to like keep the odds even. No. Boop. Oh man, turns him around. What? Where did I go?
Yeah, maybe after a couple millennia, they're like, kill me. And he's like, no. That's right.
Yeah. Killmonger, who's he's human after all. He's like, too old. No. Inject youth. Must keep you alive. Zombie Killmonger.
Oh, you uses, I got my time.
That's right. It's like,
your time there.
Yeah. I'll use my time stone to activate the little tiny time stone in there, and it'll keep you young. Anyway, but it's interesting. So this eternal conflict is inside this little pocket plane.
Yes.
It also made me think, there's a rumor, and I think it's just a rumor, but that perhaps the Sorcerer Supreme is going to make an appearance in Multiverse of Madness, that like a uber powerful dark version of Strange, which would this guy fills the bill, would appear in the Multiverse of Madness. If that's the case, it makes me think, like,
who's watching the orb?
Yeah, right. Well, it just makes me think, he put himself into this jail, right, in and of himself. Like, look, I deserve punishment for being terrible and killing myself. So he did that, and he's in it.
So then, maybe he would, like, be in the Multiverse of Madness, and he'll just have it with him.
Yeah, that's true. He shakes it up. What should I do, Magic 8-Ball me? Future uncertain. All right, great. But it occurred to me, like, so the Watcher shows up. It's like, look, I know you put yourself in timeout forever in this pocket plane, but we really need, oh my God, the multiverse needs you. So come on out and help us. Okay. He comes out and he gets this, taste of freedom, and he's just like kicking ass, basically.
Yes.
And then it's like, now I'll go back and I will, for the rest of time, never come out again. It just feels like there'd be some point at which you'd be like, all right, maybe this is I got out and it was fine and everybody loved me. I was a hero. So, I could probably do more good things out there. I think I should leave. Hey, bye, Pocket Plane. I don't know. I could imagine a scenario where maybe he decides, that's enough. That's enough self-torture. I'm out.
Or maybe, like all the other Doctor Stranges are just enlisted to, like,
right.
And it's like the coyote and the sheepdog in the Warner Brothers cartoon.
Oh, right. Clock in.
Hey, Steve. Hey, yeah. Steve.
All right. Hey, Strange, too. Tink, tink. They all take their turn. Oh, yeah. Thank God. I'm on the outside.
Yeah.
I'll be back next week. Everybody has to kind of go back to their time except for Black Widow.
Right.
And the Watcher makes an exception for her and is like, I'm not going to return you to the bleak apocalypse that I dragged you from. I'm going to return you to a world, Rick and Morty. It's a world that lost their Black Widow, so we'll put you in. And just for a second, it wasn't much, but because I realized pretty quickly where he'd put her. He put her into the universe where Hank Pym killed the Avengers. And then Nick brought back Captain Marvel and Captain America. And, look, now we have Black Widow back. And they were fighting Loki. But just for a second, I was like, wait a minute. Did What If just put Black Widow back in the MCU? I was like, oh my. Like, that would have been like a towering thing if that had been the case.
Yeah.
You're like, you must watch What If in order to know that, Black Widow's just fine. She's hanging out. She's fine. No. So she gets that special dispensation. Captain Carter asks for dispensation, doesn't get it. It's like, look, that world that you're going back to needs you. So suck it up. Yes. Get at it. So she goes back, as we say, at the very end, she sees this Hydra Stomper, and I think Black Widow says, and there's someone in there. So the implication being Steve Rogers, the non-Captain America Steve Rogers from World War II that she left, she being Captain Carter left, is in this armor that's deactivated and just hanging out on this ship. And you're like, since World War II?
I was thinking about that. Initially, I thought, the same thing happened to, Steve that happened to Bucky in the universe that we're familiar with. So he became a Winter Soldier. But, be a different sort of scenario than we saw then, because he was someplace else. Bucky was someplace else getting his orders, or perhaps on another mission, since there's maybe a little bit of time difference there. It's not like the Winter Soldier was there with Batroc. That's not how it was.
Also, let's say it was Steve. it is, but let's say it's Steve is inside that armor,
Yeah.
and he's conscious, and he's Steve. He would have already gone like, "Oh my God, look, Peggy!" Like he would have already greeted them. So the fact that he's just sitting there suggests he's either
if
unconscious.
If he went in the same mind, wiping his
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Then he wouldn't know.
Correct. I'm saying it insinuates that there was a mind wipe. Because if there wasn't, he'd be like, "Hey, everybody!
Yes.
Oh, thanks for finding me. Great."
Right. Well, I assume that he's like, sitting there in stasis the way that Bucky was.
The macabre version is that they did. Oh, the Hydra Stomper. That's a really cool bit of tech. Let's save it. And they just have a corpse inside.
I think the idea is that he's, because they don't explain in Winter Soldier, but that he's on stasis when he's not killing someone.
Yeah. Good point. So that is the concept, is that perhaps Steve's Hydra Stomper got taken by Hydra and repurposed, and he's been doing missions for them since World War II, so he's still roughly the same age, and perhaps there'll be an episode in season 2 of What If where in that we come back to this world, and
it's hard for me to imagine that they don't do it. Why should we assume that everything? Oh, okay.
You're right.
For Bucky and Steve, and why would it work out for Peggy and Steve?
The way they left it off, if they'd left it off with helmet opens and it's Steve and he's like, "Oh, I was in stasis, but now I'm fine." Whatever. Do some little quick one-line wrap-up that explains why he's there and that he knows who she is, and it's a joyful reunion credits. Then you'll never see him again. But because it's like, wait, what? It just leaves off with this, huh? So yeah, maybe he's brainwashed. They're enemies at first. They have to fight, and then much like Captain America and Bucky, eventually he comes around. I liked some of the combo work, the combo skills. I particularly liked Thor throwing Mjolnir and then Strange copying it like hundreds of times. So there's hundreds of Mjolnirs, just bump, 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 bump. Then taking them and basically levitating them all into a giant orb, and then Thor electrifies the orb. So it's like a super. Anyway, that was a pretty cool little multi-strike.
And once all the Mjolnirs were hitting him, that last one,
Also, we saw Captain Carter and Black Widow, who had the Red Guardian shield. They're like bing, 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 bing. They're binging shields off of Ultron, which is kind of cool too. Ultron, wasn't as creative in his use of the stones as, say, Thanos was, right? I mean, most of his attacks were like laser, laser, laser. He didn't do a lot of reality-altering things, for instance, or he grew big at one point.
He seemed more threatening against the Watcher in the previous episode, actually.
Right, I agree. I guess he thought it was going to be easy once Thor revealed their location. He's like, this will be a cakewalk, and then protective armor.
Like, if we have him be as tenacious as he was in that last episode, then why could they ever win?
So they do win, and the multiverse is saved, but they also introduced us to the idea of what the rules of the multiverse are. I think in some ways this show is almost like a primer for what's coming in the MCU, since you're going to have
what
multiverse
rules
of
are
madness.
you thinking of?
Well, just, I don't know, like, there are different versions of people. They have different pasts. Things can be, they're not all like clones of each other or something. People have different motivations. There could be an evil version of Doctor Strange. There could be whatever. There's a version of Steve Rogers that's not hulked out with the super soldier serum.
Okay.
That kind of stuff. I just feel like they're just introducing us to that concept so that when we see it in Spider-Man, they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, okay, got it." It was exciting. I did enjoy. I mean, it had its ups and downs in a way, but I felt like generally they were more ups than downs, and I thought it ended strong. Looking forward to season 2. I think the next, Disney Plus thing is Hawkeye.
Yes.
Yes, right. Okay. So that'll obviously be a much different vehicle than this. And then obviously the Eternals is coming to movie theaters as well.
Yes, yes.
Something that was interesting to me, anyway, the Watcher, there was a little monologue toward the end there where he basically says, "Look, I'm not going to just watch anymore. I'm going to be a protector." So he's had change of heart. But also, I felt like there's a bit where Black Widow's talking to him and like, "What have you been doing all this time? Just watching us do this stuff?" And so
eating popcorn while you watch.
And he says like, "No, but it meant so much to me." And so it definitely has he's a stand-in for the audience. And it occurred to me that in some ways that's what we had with WandaVision, right? In that we were watching the TV. So in both of those shows, there's a sense of it was an attempt to bring us as viewers is some kind of a extra character in the actual show. I don't know. It's kind of interesting. I think there's a duality there that maybe an intention for the show. But so I think to good effect in both cases. So
sure.
So I assume Matt Rice, I'm going to be in the Hawkeye show. I'm going to be shooting a bow, and I'll be like, "Oh man, this is awesome!"
Why do you say that?
Because they're bringing us viewers into the show. So
I see.
As a viewer, I mean, I can only assume the next step is I'm Hawkeye 2.
Interesting. Yeah, hopefully you'll be more popular than Clinton.
All right, good point. My haircut will be different, obviously, but okay. But anyway, so thank you, Paul, as always, good sir. We'll be back talking about Foundation. We're still trying to catch up on Foundation a little bit. I've been a little behind on the editing. I'm getting there, but we're catching up on Foundation, and we'll be back talking about that. So thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.